Welcome to this explainer. Today we've got something incredibly fun and honestly, genuinely mind-expanding lined up for us. We're going to be looking at a curated collection of 35 totally random, absolutely fascinating facts. This fantastic list actually comes to us from Concordia University, Texas, and it was originally put together by their mascot, Vortex, to just kind of celebrate the pure, unadulterated joy of continual learning. And really, that's exactly what we're all about here, empowering ourselves with some incredibly cool new knowledge.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our journey for today. We'll start off with everyday oddities in anatomy, then we'll move into nature's quirks and creatures, uncover some historical surprises and secrets, decode words, symbols, and semantics, and finally, we'll wrap the whole thing up with the power of human ingenuity.
Section 1, Everyday Oddities and Anatomy. Closer than you think. Let's get right into it.
So, can you hum while holding your nose? I am absolutely challenging you right now, wherever you're sitting or standing. Pinch your nose completely shut, close your mouth, and just try to hum a quick tune. Seriously, give it a shot right now.
Well, did you manage it? Probably not, right? Because it's literally anatomically impossible. Humming actually requires you to steadily exhale air over your vocal cords. So when both your mouth and your nose are clamped tightly shut, that air just has absolutely nowhere to go. It's this hilarious little physical limitation that we almost never think about. Oh, and while we're on the subject of your face, here's a fun little bonus fact for you. Your nose and your ears, they never actually stop growing throughout your entire life. Wild, right?
50. That is the staggering number of different objects your human eye can physically focus on in a single second. 50 objects per second. Our bodies are basically processing the world at a speed that's just, it's off the charts, making these rapid-fire adjustments so quickly we don't even consciously register them.
Moving on to Section 2, Nature's Quirks and Creatures, Wild Wonders. Now, what's really interesting about this next one is the absolute mind-bending paradox of what science actually classifies as a berry. Think about bananas, tomatoes, eggplants, watermelons. Scientifically speaking, these are all true berries. Now compare that to strawberries, raspberries, blackberries. They literally have the word berry right there in their name. Yet scientifically, they're absolutely not berries. No way.
So why is that? Well, to be a true scientific berry, a fruit has to check 3 very strict biological boxes. First, it needs 3 distinct layers: an outer skin, a fleshy middle, and an inner part that holds the seeds. Second, it has to contain 2 or more seeds. And crucially, the third rule, it must develop from one flower that has exactly 1 ovary. Bananas check all those boxes perfectly. Strawberries do not. It kind of completely reframes how you're going to look at the produce aisle from now on, doesn't it?
And hey, speaking of bananas, let me drop 2 rapid-fire nature quirks on you before we switch gears. First, bananas actually grow upward toward the sun. They totally fight against gravity, which is exactly what gives them that signature curved shape. Second, if you ever happen to see a group of lemurs just hanging out together, you are officially looking at a conspiracy. Yep, a conspiracy of lemurs. Nature is just incredibly poetic sometimes, isn't it?
All right, Section 3, Historical Surprises and Secrets, the Unexpected Past.
Let's jump back to 1958. A high school student named Bob Heft anticipated that Alaska and Hawaii were going to become states, right? So he took his family's old 48-star flag and he actually redesigned it to have 50 stars for a school project. His teacher looked at it and gave him a rather unimpressive B-. But fast forward 2 years later to 1960, and President Dwight D. Eisenhower actually selects Heft's exact design out of literally 1,500 submissions to be the new national symbol. Naturally, after that whole shebang, his teacher went back and changed that B- to an A. It just goes to show you, sometimes the teacher isn't always right initially.
Moving from national flags to national leaders, you gotta know that President Theodore Roosevelt ran an absolute zoo at the White House. Just listen to this roster of pets. We're talking a small bear, a lizard, a pig, a giant blue macaw, a barn owl, a pony, but the absolute highlights for sure have to be the one-legged rooster and an actual literal hyena. I mean, just imagine a hyena living at the White House.
Now, across the pond, the British military has some brilliant historical quirks of its own. Get this. Since the end of World War II in 1945, every single British tank has been equipped with a boiling vessel. Why, you ask? So the troops can make a fresh cup of tea. It might sound like a joke, but it's actually sheer ingenuity. It means soldiers can stay safely tucked inside their armored vehicles, fully protected from enemy fire, while still getting to enjoy their tea time. I mean, Talk about prioritizing morale, right?
Section 4. Words, symbols, and semantics. The meaning of things. Okay, look at your phone or your computer keyboard right now. That little symbol you probably call a hashtag or maybe a pound sign, its actual official academic name is an octothorpe. Oh, and remember when we were talking about weird everyday facts earlier? Well, if you pull just one single lonely noodle out of a bowl of spaghetti, you are technically holding a spaghetto. We rely so much on these words and symbols every single day, yet we rarely know their true names.
This next one is absolutely fantastic. An oxymoron is a phrase made up of self-contradicting words, right? Like jumbo shrimp or seriously funny. So the crucial point here is the word oxymoron is literally an oxymoron itself. It comes from ancient Greek. Oxy means sharp, and moron means stupid. Sharp stupid. It's just this brilliantly hilarious linguistic joke hiding right there in plain sight.
And we definitely need to shatter a major geographic myth right here. The word y'all. You almost certainly associate it with Texas and the American South, right? Well, actually, scratch that. The earliest known use of the word comes from a 17th century Englishman named William Lyle in his work The Fair Ethiopian. And speaking of geographical myths, you know Chicago's famous nickname, the Windy City? Yeah, it wasn't about the weather at all. Journalists in the 1800s actually coined it as a total insult, claiming the city's residents and politicians were just full of hot air.
And that brings us to Section 5, the power of human ingenuity, feats and facts.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer irony of human naming conventions. In London's world-famous train transportation system, the London Underground, a massive 55% of the train lines actually travel above ground. Literally, only 45% of the so-called underground actually uses underground tunnels. Kind of a wild misnomer, huh? Now behold this staggering number, 823. That is the exact word count of a single, massive run-on sentence written by Victor Hugo in his classic novel Les Miserables. Can you just imagine writing, or even trying to read out loud, a single sentence that stretches on for 823 words before finally mercifully hitting a period? Honestly, that's an endurance sport, not just literature.
Let's talk about technological scale for a second. To put things into perspective, consider the Apollo 11 computer, that incredibly complex piece of machinery that successfully calculated how to launch humanity off this planet and safely land us on the moon. Now, compare that to a TI-83 calculator, that basic, chunky electronic brick sitting in almost every single high school math class. That simple school calculator actually has 6 times more processing power than the computer that conquered space. It is absolutely wild how fast human ingenuity scales up. We're going to end our trivia journey today with a quick, interactive fact about the very tool you probably use every single day. Look down at your computer keyboard for me. Out of all 50 U.S. states, Alaska is the only one whose name can be typed using just one single row of keys. A-L-A-S-K-A. They're all right there on the middle home row. Seriously, go ahead, trace it out. Pretty neat, right? And that brings us to the end of our explainer. From impossible humming and one-legged roosters to space-age calculators, I think this collection really proves that the world around us is endlessly surprising. You know, if you just know where to look. Continual learning really does keep our perspective fresh and our minds sharp. So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. What random, fascinating fact are you going to uncover next? Keep exploring, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.